The silence after battle was always the worst part. Captain Minsu Park stood in the main corridor of Kepler Station, his boots crunching on broken glass and twisted metal. The air still smelled of smoke and burned circuits. 3 days of fighting had finally ended, and the Galactic Defense Coalition had won. But victory felt hollow when you were surrounded by death. Minsu looked down at his uniform. Dark stains covered the blue fabric. Some was his blood, some belonged to his soldiers, and some came from the enemy. The Vorthak Empire had sent their best warriors to take this remote station. They had failed, but the cost was terrible for everyone. His communication device buzzed. Commander Zelak of the Altarian forces appeared as a shimmering crystal hologram. The alien's voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Captain Park, my forces are beginning evacuation procedures. We estimate departure in 2 hours. Please prepare your humans for transport." Minsu nodded slowly. Around him, other coalition species were already packing up. The tall, gas-like nebulites floated through corridors, gathering their equipment in glowing bubbles. The machine hybrid synthetics moved with mechanical precision, their metal bodies clicking as they worked. Everyone wanted to leave this place of death behind them. "Captain." The voice belonged to Dr. Heewon Lee, the station's chief medical officer. She approached carefully, stepping over debris. Her medical uniform was as dirty as his combat gear. Dark circles under her eyes showed how little sleep she had gotten during the siege. "Dr. Lee? How are our wounded?" "Stable, mostly. We lost 37 humans in the fighting. Could have been much worse." She paused, looking around the destroyed corridor. "Minsu, I need to talk to you about something." He noticed she used his first name instead of his rank. That meant serious business. "What is it?" "The bodies. The Vorthak bodies." She pointed toward a side passage where several alien corpses lay twisted among the wreckage. "There are thousands of them throughout the station, in the corridors, in the outer sections, floating in the docking bays." Minsu frowned. "The cleanup crews will handle disposal when we get back to base." "That's just it." Heewon's voice became urgent. "Nobody is planning cleanup. I asked Commander Zelak, Captain Vex from the Nebulites, even Unit Prime from the Synthetics. They all said the same thing: the dead are not their concern." "What do you mean? They're going to leave them here, all of them? Thousands of Vorthak soldiers will just rot in this station." Minsu felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had fought alongside these alien allies for 2 years. They were good soldiers and decent beings. But sometimes the cultural differences hit him like a physical blow. "They don't see the problem," Heewon continued. "To them, enemy dead are just biological waste, matter to be recycled eventually, or just ignored." A young voice interrupted them. "Captain Park, sir?" Sergeant Donghyun Kim approached and saluted. His left arm was in a makeshift sling, but he still moved with military precision. "The men are asking about departure schedules." "In a moment, Sergeant." Minsu looked back at Heewon. "How many Vorthak dead are we talking about exactly?" "My preliminary count shows over 3,000. Maybe more in sections we haven't reached yet." She pulled out her medical scanner. "I've been documenting what I could, Captain. These weren't just soldiers. I found personal items, family pictures, religious symbols. They had lives, families, beliefs." Sergeant Kim shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, if I may ask, why does it matter? They tried to kill us. They would have slaughtered every human on this station if they had won." Minsu understood the question. It was logical, practical, even justified. The Vorthak Empire had declared war on humanity first. They had attacked civilian colonies, killed innocent people, shown no mercy to prisoners. By all rights, humans owed them nothing, but that wasn't the point. "Sergeant, gather the senior staff. I need to speak with everyone before we make any decisions about departure." 20 minutes later, the remaining human leadership stood in what used to be the station's main meeting room. Half the furniture was destroyed, and a large hole in the wall showed stars through emergency shields. But it would do. Lieutenant So-hee, Chung leaned against a damaged table. Communications Officer Yoonji Nam sat on a supply crate, her equipment still buzzing with intercepted transmissions. Private Jinwoo Han stood near the door, young and eager, despite the exhaustion in his eyes. Medic Taehyun Choi had just finished treating wounded and still carried his medical bag. Engineer Min Jae-yu worked on a broken light panel while listening. His tools clinked softly in the background. "People," Minsu began, "we have a situation. The other coalition forces are preparing to leave, but there's something we need to discuss first." He explained what Dr. Lee had discovered. The thousands of enemy dead lying throughout the station. The complete lack of interest from their allies in dealing with the bodies. "So what are you saying, Captain?" Lieutenant Chang asked. "That we should stay behind and clean up after the enemy?" "I'm saying we should think about what kind of people we want to be." Private Han spoke up. "Sir, with respect, they're dead. They can't care what happens to their bodies now." "But their families can," Dr. Lee interjected. "I've been studying their personal effects. Many of these soldiers carried pictures, letters from home. They had people who loved them, just like we do." Communications Officer Nam looked up from her equipment. "Captain, I've been monitoring Vorthak transmissions during the battle. A lot of their final messages were to family members, parents, spouses, children. They died thinking of the people they loved." The room fell quiet except for Engineer Yu's tools and the distant hum of life support systems. Sergeant Kim broke the silence. "Sir, command is expecting us to evacuate with the other forces. If we stay behind, we'll be alone out here. What if more Vorthak ships arrive?" "That's a risk we'll have to consider," Minsu admitted. "But I keep thinking about something my grandmother told me when I was young. She lived through the resource wars on Earth, saw a lot of death and destruction. She always said that you could judge a person's character by how they treated their enemies after the fighting stopped." He looked around the room at faces that showed exhaustion, confusion, and something else. Something that might have been understanding. These Vorthak soldiers fought hard and died far from home. They were our enemies, yes, but they were also warriors who deserved better than being left to rot in empty corridors. Dr. Lee nodded slowly. "If we stay, we could document everything properly, return personal effects to their families somehow, give them burial with honor. The other species will think we're crazy," Lieutenant Chang pointed out. "Maybe they will," Minsu agreed, "but maybe that's exactly why it matters." The last coalition transport disappeared into hyperspace at 800 hours, leaving 200 humans alone on Kepler Station. Captain Minsu Park watched the ship's lights fade through the observation deck window. Behind him, his people prepared for the hardest work any of them had ever done. "Captain," Sergeant Donghyun Kim approached with a datapad. "I've completed the preliminary survey. We have 3,047 confirmed Vorthak dead, spread across 18 sections of the station." Minsu took the pad and studied the numbers. Each section would require different approaches. Some areas still had atmosphere and artificial gravity. Others were open to space or had failing life support systems. "How long do you estimate for complete recovery?" "If we work in shifts around the clock, maybe 15 hours, but that's assuming no complications." Dr. Hee-Won Lee joined them, carrying her medical scanner and a large storage container. "I've been examining the bodies in Section C. Minsu, you need to see this." She led them down a damaged corridor to where several Vorthak soldiers lay, among twisted metal and broken equipment. The aliens were tall, roughly humanoid but with gray-green skin and distinctive ridge patterns on their foreheads. Their armor was practical but decorated with personal touches. "Look at this." Haiwan knelt beside one body and pointed to a small, metal object clutched in the soldier's hand. "It's some kind of family portrait. See these smaller figures, probably his children." She moved to another body. This one carried what looks like a religious symbol, and this female here had letters in her armor, personal correspondence, maybe from home. Lieutenant Sohee Chang examined the letters using a translation device. The alien text slowly converted to readable English on her screen. "Captain, listen to this. My brave daughter, the little ones ask about you every day. Keth learned to walk while you've been gone. He takes his first steps toward your picture each morning." The words hit harder than enemy plasma fire had during the battle. These weren't faceless monsters. They were people with families, hopes, fears, and love for others just like humans had. Private Jinwoo Han picked up a damaged weapon from the floor. Sir, some of their equipment is still active. Booby traps, maybe. Good point. Everyone needs to be extra careful. We're not just recovering bodies. We're handling someone's father, mother, son, or daughter. The work began in earnest. Teams spread throughout the station, each taking responsibility for different sections. The task was harder than anyone had imagined. Communications Officer Yoon Ji-nam coordinated between teams using portable radios. Team 3, be advised that Section F has no atmosphere. You'll need full environmental suits. Copy that, came Engineer Min Jae-yu's voice over the comm. We're seeing structural damage here too. Some bodies are trapped under debris. In Section G, medic Tae-hyun Choi worked carefully to extract personal items from each body. He had improvised a cataloging system, photographing each soldier with their possessions before placing everything in sealed containers. This is important work, he told Private Han, who was helping him move a particularly large Vorthak warrior. These items might be the only things their families ever get back. The young private struggled with the weight. How do we even know if their families want this stuff back? Maybe Vorthak don't care about dead people like we do. Then we'll find out. But we do this right regardless. Lieutenant Chang's team discovered something troubling in Section M. Captain, you need to get down here. We've got a problem. Min-soo and Dr. Lee hurried to the lower levels where Chang's team had been working. They found her standing outside a sealed compartment, her face pale. What is it, Lieutenant? There's someone alive in there. Vorthak life signs, but fading fast. Min-soo felt his heart rate increase. A living enemy soldier changed everything. By military protocol, he should secure the prisoner and call for backup. But backup was hours away and the alien was dying. Can we get him out safely? The compartment is damaged. Atmospheric seal is failing. If we break it open, we might kill him faster. Dr. Lee stepped forward with her medical kit. I can try to help him, but I'll need to get inside. Haiwan, that's incredibly dangerous. We don't know if he's armed or what his condition is. If we leave him, he dies alone and afraid. If we help him, maybe we save a life. Min-soo made the decision that would haunt and inspire him for the rest of his life. Do it, but carefully. It took 30 minutes to cut through the damaged door safely. Inside, they found a Vorthak commander slumped against a broken console. His armor was cracked, and green fluid that might have been blood pooled around him. The alien's eyes opened when he saw them. Instead of fear or anger, Min-soo saw something like confusion. Dr. Lee immediately began medical assessment. He's got internal injuries and severe blood loss. I can stabilize him, but he needs proper medical facilities. The Vorthak commander tried to speak. His voice was weak, but the translation device picked up his words. Why? Why do you not kill me? Min-soo knelt down so they were at eye level. Because killing you won't bring back our dead. And you're dying already. I am Commander Thekvar of the 18th Attack Wing. I led the assault on your pathetic station. I'm Captain Min-soo Park. I led the defense that stopped you. Thekvar's eyes showed surprise. You are the human commander. My intelligence reports said you were clever and dangerous. Your intelligence was right about the dangerous part. Dr. Lee worked quietly while the two commanders talked. She gave Thekvar something for the pain and started an IV line to replace lost fluids. I do not understand, Thekvar said. Your allies have departed. You could have left my warriors to rot like garbage. Instead, you tend to our dead with honor. Why? Min-soo thought about how to explain something that seemed obvious to him, but alien to everyone else they had met. Because they fought bravely and died far from home. Because they deserve better than being forgotten. But we are enemies. We have killed your people. Yes, and we've killed yours. But the fighting is over now. What matters is how we treat each other when the weapons are silent. Thekvar closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, something had changed. Captain Park, there is something you must know. My fleet sent distress signals before your final attack. More ships are coming. Min-soo felt ice in his veins. How many ships? When will they arrive? 12 hours, maybe less. 3 battle cruisers and support vessels. They come to recover our dead and investigate what happened here. Dr. Lee looked up from her work. Minsu, they'll find us here alone with their dead. They might think we're desecrating the bodies. Or they might think it's a trap, added Lieutenant Chang over the radio. Commander Thekvar struggled to sit up, straighter. Captain, I will tell them the truth that you showed honor to fallen enemies, but I do not know if they will believe it. The weight of their decision pressed down on everyone. They had chosen to stay behind and do the right thing. Now that choice might get them all killed. But as Minsu looked around at his people working, to honor enemy dead, he felt something he hadn't expected. Pride. Whatever happened next, they had chosen to be better than their circumstances demanded. We continue the work, he announced over the comm system. Every body gets proper treatment. Every personal item gets cataloged and preserved. If we're going to face a Vorthak fleet, we'll face them having done the right thing. In the distance, space remained empty. But somewhere in that darkness, ships were coming, and the humans of Kepler Station would soon learn if honor was stronger than hatred. Something was watching them work. Private Jinwoo Han felt it first as he carefully moved a fallen Vorthak warrior from the outer ring of the station. A strange sensation, like being observed by something vast and ancient. He looked around the damaged corridor but saw only his fellow humans working quietly in the dim emergency lighting. Did you feel that? He asked Medic Taehyun Choi, who was documenting personal effects nearby. Feel what? Like we're being watched. Taehyun paused in his work and looked around. Just us and the dead here, Jinwoo. Maybe you need some rest. But Jinwoo wasn't the only one sensing something unusual. Throughout the station, humans began reporting strange feelings. A presence that seemed to press against the edges of their awareness. In the medical bay, Dr. Hyewan Lee tended to Commander Thekvar. The Vorthak officer was stable, but still weak from his injuries. He had been telling her about Vorthak burial customs when his eyes suddenly widened. They are here, he whispered. Who is here? Your fleet isn't due for several hours. Not my people, the Watchers, the old ones who see all things. Hyewan frowned. I don't understand. What are you talking about? Thekvar struggled to sit up, his voice urgent. Doctor, in all the stories of my people, in all our ancient texts, the Watchers are mentioned. Beings older than stars who observe but never interfere. They have not shown themselves in living memory. That sounds like mythology. Perhaps, but I feel them now, watching us through the walls of reality itself. Meanwhile, Captain Minsu Park worked with engineer Min Jae-yu to recover bodies from a section where the hull had been breached. They wore full spacesuits and worked carefully in the zero-gravity environment. Captain, Min Jae's voice came through the comm. Are you seeing anything strange out there? Minsu looked through his helmet visor at the star field beyond the damaged hull. What do you mean? I keep thinking I see movement in the empty space. Shadows where there shouldn't be any. As if responding to his words, something shifted in the darkness between stars. Not a ship or any physical object, but a presence that bent space around itself. Minsu blinked and it was gone. Keep working, Min-jae. We're probably just tired. But across the station, the sensation grew stronger. Lieutenant Sohee Chang reported it while cataloging personal items in Section F. Communications Officer Yoon-ji Nam felt watched while monitoring radio frequencies. Even Sergeant Dong-Yun Kim, practical and skeptical by nature, began glancing over his shoulder. The work continued despite the strange feelings. In 12 hours of constant effort, they had recovered and properly arranged over 2,000 Vorthak bodies. Each warrior was laid out with dignity, personal weapons crossed over their chests, family photos and religious items placed respectfully nearby. The humans had improvised funeral preparations using their own military traditions adapted for alien customs. It wasn't perfect, but it showed clear respect and honor for the fallen enemy. In the main corridor, they had created a memorial hall of sorts. Rows of Vorthak dead lay in formation, their armor cleaned and straightened. Personal effects were organized and labeled for return to families. The sight was both somber and beautiful. Private Han paused in his work to look at the memorial. You know what's strange? They look peaceful now. During the battle, they seemed like monsters, but seeing them like this, they just look like soldiers who died far from home. That's exactly what they are, said Medic Taehyun, who had joined him. Warriors following orders, fighting for what they believed in. As the humans worked through the night, something extraordinary began to happen in the space around Kepler Station. The fabric of reality started to ripple like water disturbed by an unseen hand. The Watchers were emerging. These beings existed in dimensions beyond normal space and time. They had observed the rise and fall of countless civilizations across millions of years. They had seen species evolve from primitive animals to star-traveling empires. They had watched wars that consumed entire galaxies and peace that lasted for eons. But they had never seen anything like what was happening on this small, damaged station. For the first time in their ancient existence, the Watchers chose to reveal themselves. The change began as a subtle shift in the light around the station. Stars seemed to brighten and dim in patterns that had no natural explanation. Space itself appeared to bend and flow like liquid. Captain Minsu felt the change while reviewing progress reports with his senior staff. The air in the room seemed to thicken, and a sound like distant singing filled his ears. Captain? Communications Officer Unji looked up from her equipment with wonder. I'm getting readings I've never seen before. Energy signatures that don't match any known technology. What kind of energy? I don't know. It's like the universe itself is trying to communicate. In the medical bay, Commander Thekvar gripped Dr. Lee's arm with surprising strength for someone so badly injured. Doctor, it is happening. The Watchers show themselves. This has not occurred in 10,000 years of Vorthak history. But why now? What's so special about what we're doing? Thekvar looked at her with something like awe in his alien eyes. Because you humans have done something no species has ever done before. You have shown perfect honor to fallen enemies. Not for gain, not for politics, not for treaties, simply because it was right. Throughout the station, the humans began to sense the immense presence surrounding them. It wasn't threatening or hostile. Instead, it felt like being watched by something infinitely old and wise. Engineer Minjae was working in the outer sections when he saw them clearly for the first time. Shapes in space that weren't quite there, beings of such size that they dwarfed the station itself. They moved with grace that defied physics, their forms shifting between visible and invisible. Dear God, he whispered into his comm. Captain, you need to see this. Minsu rushed to the observation deck and looked out at space. What he saw changed his understanding of the universe forever. The Watchers had revealed themselves fully. Beings of pure energy and thought that stretched across space like living galaxies. Their forms were beautiful and terrible, ancient beyond comprehension yet somehow familiar, and they were all focused on the small human station where 200 people honored their dead enemies. Lieutenant Chang joined him at the window. Sir, what are those things? I think they're the reason we're here, Minsu replied softly. I think they're the reason any of us are here. One of the Watchers moved closer to the station. Its presence filled the minds of every human aboard with a voice that spoke without words, communicated without language. We have watched the universe unfold for eons beyond counting. We have seen the birth of stars and the death of galaxies. We have observed every form of life that has ever existed. The voice paused, and in that silence every human felt the weight of infinite time and space. Never have we witnessed such honor between enemies. Never have we seen a species choose compassion over convenience, dignity over duty. You have shown a something new in a universe we thought held no more surprises. Dr. Lee stood beside Commander Thekvar, both of them staring out at the impossible beings surrounding the station. What does this mean? She asked. The dying Vorthak commander smiled, an expression his species rarely showed. It means your people have just changed the course of galactic history, Doctor, and the oldest beings in the universe are here to witness it. In the memorial hall, surrounded by the honored dead of both sides, the humans of Kepler Station realized they had become part of something far greater than they had ever imagined. The Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace like thunder made visible. 3 massive battle cruisers and their escort ships appeared in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons designed to crack planets open. Captain Minsu Park watched from the observation deck as the enemy fleet took position around Kepler Station. Each ship was 3 times larger than the station itself. Their weapon ports glowed with charging energy, ready to turn the small human outpost into scattered atoms. Captain, Communications Officer Yunji Nam's voice was steady despite the fear everyone felt. The lead ship is hailing us. They're demanding immediate surrender and explanation for why we're still here. Minsu took a deep breath. Behind him, the Watchers still maintained their impossible presence in space, their ancient forms visible as shifting patterns of light and shadow. The cosmic beings had been silent since their first contact, but their attention remained focused on the small drama unfolding around the station. Open a channel, Yunji. Let's talk to them. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Vorthak flagship. Fleet Admiral Korthon stood in the center, his massive frame imposing even through a holographic display. His armor was decorated with battle honors, and his eyes burned with the fury of someone expecting treachery. I am Fleet Admiral Korthon of the Vorthak Imperial Navy. You will identify yourself and explain why human forces remain at this station. I am Captain Minsu Park, commanding officer of the human garrison. We stayed behind to complete necessary work. Korthon's expression darkened. What work requires humans to remain among our dead? Are you desecrating the bodies of our warriors? The accusation hit like a physical blow. After hours of careful, respectful work, the idea that their actions could be seen as desecration was painful. Admiral, we are not desecrating anything. We are honoring your dead. Silence filled the channel. Korthon leaned forward, his alien features showing confusion and suspicion. Honoring our dead. Explain this deception. Minsu chose his words carefully. When the battle ended, the other coalition forces departed immediately. They showed no interest in the Vorthak warriors who had fallen. We felt this was wrong. Enemy or not, your soldiers deserved better than being left to rot in empty corridors. You lie. No species honors enemy dead. It serves no purpose. It serves the purpose of being right. In the medical bay, Dr. Haiwan Li helped Commander Thekvar sit up so he could see the communication display. The wounded Vorthak officer had insisted on witnessing this moment despite his injuries. Admiral Korthon. Thekvar's weak voice cut through the tension. I am Commander Thekvar of the 18th Attack Wing. These humans speak truth. Korthon's eyes widened in surprise. Thekvar, we believed you dead. How do you live? The humans found me dying and gave medical aid. They could have left me to die alone, but instead they showed mercy to a defeated enemy. The Admiral's expression shifted from anger to confusion. I do not understand. You are their prisoner. I am their patient, Thekvar corrected. Admiral, you must see what they have done. The humans have spent their time arranging our fallen with military honors. They have preserved personal effects for return to families. They have shown respect that our own allies would not. Korthon was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, again, his voice carried uncertainty. Show me. Minsu nodded to Lieutenant So-hee Chang, who had been preparing for this moment. Admiral, we will transmit visual records of our work. You can see for yourself what we have done. The data stream began immediately. Images flowed from the station to the Vorthak fleet, showing the memorial hall where enemy dead lay in formation with dignity and respect. Personal weapons crossed over armored chests, family photos and religious items carefully arranged. Each warrior treated as an individual worthy of honor. Korthon watched in silence as the evidence unfolded before him. His bridge crew gathered around him, their own expressions showing amazement and disbelief. This cannot be real, one of the Vorthak officers whispered. Enemies do not do such things. But the images continued. They showed humans working carefully to extract bodies from damaged sections. Medic Taehyun Choi cataloging personal effects with meticulous care. Engineer Min Jae Yu repairing sections of the station to better preserve the dead. Most powerful of all were the images of the final ceremony. Captain Minsu Park's younger brother, Pilot Young-ho Park, had recorded the human military funeral rites they had performed for the Vorthak dead. The ceremony included moments of silence, the careful folding of battle standards, and the respectful presentation of personal effects. Admiral Korthon watched his enemies honor his people's dead with traditions that translated across species, barriers. The sight of humans standing at attention in formation around Vorthak warriors was something his military mind could understand, even if his heart struggled to accept it. Why? He finally asked. Why would you do this for enemies who tried to destroy you? Pilot Young-ho stepped forward on the screen. Admiral, my brother taught me that the measure of a warrior is not how fiercely he fights, but how he treats the defeated. Your soldiers fought bravely and died far from home. They deserve to be honored, not forgotten. The words seemed to strike something deep in the Vorthak psyche. Their entire culture was built around concepts of honor, courage, and respect for worthy opponents. But they had never considered that enemies might show such honor to them. Suddenly, space around both the station and the fleet began to change. The Watchers, silent observers until now, chose this moment to reveal themselves fully to the Vorthak forces. The ancient beings materialized in space between the human station and the enemy fleet. Their forms were impossible to describe properly, shifting between energy and matter, visible and invisible. They were vast beyond comprehension, their presence dwarfing both the small station and the massive warships. On the Vorthak flagship, alarms began sounding as sensors tried unsuccessfully to classify what they were detecting. The bridge crew stared in terror and wonder at beings their oldest legends barely dared to mention. Admiral Korthon fell to his knees, recognizing what stood before them. The Watchers, the first ones, they who see all things. The voice that spoke next filled every mind on every ship and in every corner of the station. It was the sound of galaxies being born, of time itself flowing like water. We are the Watchers. We have observed the universe since its birth. We have seen the rise and fall of 10 million civilizations. We have witnessed every form of warfare, every type of peace, every expression of life that has ever existed. The cosmic beings paused, and in that silence, every human in Vorthak felt the weight of infinite time and space pressing down on them. In all our eons of observation across all the stars we have watched, never have we seen one species show such honor to their fallen enemies. Never have we witnessed such pure compassion between warring peoples. Admiral Korthon looked from his screen showing the Watchers to the images still displaying human care for Vorthak dead. His worldview, built over a lifetime of military service, crumbled and reformed in moments. The humans, he whispered. What are they? Commander Thekvar's voice answered from the medical bay. They are what we could have been, Admiral. What we should have been. The Watchers continued their cosmic pronouncement. You Vorthak call these humans your enemies. You have branded them as soulless creatures without honor, yet they have shown greater honor than any species we have observed. On the flagship bridge, Admiral Korthon slowly rose to his feet. His hands shook as he reached for his ceremonial sword. In one fluid motion, he drew the blade and held it horizontally across his palms, offering it toward the human station. It was the highest honor one Vorthak could show another. The gesture of surrender not in defeat, but in recognition of superior virtue. Captain Minsu Park. Korthon's voice carried across space with new respect. I formally surrender my fleet and my command to you, not because you have defeated us in battle, but because you have shown us what true honor looks like. In the memorial hall of Kepler Station, surrounded by the bodies of former enemies now treated as honored dead, Captain Minsu Park realized that everything had changed. The war was ending not through conquest or treaty, but through the simple human act of showing respect for the fallen, and the oldest beings in the universe had come to witness it happen. 3 months after the events at Kepler Station, Captain Minsu Park stood before the Galactic Council on the capital world of Centauri Prime. The massive assembly hall held representatives from every known species in the galaxy. But today was different. Today, former enemies sat side by side. Admiral Korthon of the Vorthak Empire sat in the chair next to him, The proud warrior who had once commanded fleets against humanity now served as the first Vorthak ambassador to the coalition. The change still amazed everyone who witnessed it. Captain Park, the council speaker called his name. Please tell us how this transformation began. Minsu stood and looked out at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. Some still showed confusion about recent events. Others displayed something like wonder. It began with a simple choice, he said. When the battle ended at Kepler Station, we could have left with our allies. We could have walked away from the enemy dead and never looked back. But that didn't feel right. In the audience, Dr. Haiwen Lee sat with the other surviving humans from Kepler Station. They had all become symbols of something new in the galaxy, something that changed how species thought about war, peace, and each other. We stayed because we believed that how we treat our enemies after the fighting stops says more about us than how we fight during battle. Minsu continued. We stayed because those Vorthak warriors had families and loved ones who deserved to know their sacrifice was honored. The Altarian representative, Commander Zilak, stood up. His crystal form chimed as he spoke. Captain, many of us still do not understand. The enemy dead could not benefit from your actions. They were beyond caring. Admiral Korthon rose to answer. Commander Zilak, you are wrong. The dead may not care, but the living do. When my people saw how humans treated our fallen warriors, it changed everything we believed about your species. The massive viewing screen in the hall displayed images from the memorial ceremony that had become famous across the galaxy. Humans standing at attention around Vorthak dead. Personal effects, carefully preserved and returned to families. Enemy soldiers treated with the same dignity as fallen comrades. The humans showed us what we had forgotten. Korthon continued. That honor is not about defeating enemies. True honor is about how we behave when we have the power to choose. Sergeant Donghyun Kim, now promoted to lieutenant, spoke from his seat. Admiral Korthon taught us something too. He showed us that enemies can become allies when they see truth. The transformation had not happened overnight. After Admiral Korthon's surrender at Kepler Station, it took weeks of careful diplomacy to end the war. But the foundation was solid. Both sides had witnessed something that changed their understanding of what was possible. The Vorthak military, built on concepts of honor and courage, could not ignore what humans had demonstrated. Their warriors began demanding explanations for why they had been told humans were monsters when the evidence showed the opposite. Within a month, the Vorthak government formally requested peace negotiations. Within 2 months, they had applied to join the Galactic Defense Coalition. The change was not limited to the Vorthak, the council speaker noted. Other species have also modified their protocols. Commander Zilak's crystal form shifted colors as he spoke. The Altarian High Command has implemented new procedures for handling enemy casualties. We call them the Kepler Protocols. Similar changes had spread throughout coalition space. The Nebulites created memorial clouds for all war, dead regardless of species. The synthetics programmed new directives about respecting organic remains. Even species that had never fought humans began adopting similar practices. But the most significant change was represented by the beings who watched from dimensions beyond normal space. The Watchers had maintained their presence since the events at Kepler Station, no longer content to simply observe. The ancient voice filled the assembly hall as one of the Watchers made itself known. For eons, we have watched civilizations rise and fall. We have seen species evolve from primitive animals to star-traveling empires. Always we remained separate, observing but never interfering. The cosmic being's presence pressed gently against every mind in the hall. But what we witnessed at Kepler Station was unprecedented. A species choosing compassion over convenience. Beings selecting moral action over practical advantage. This was evolution of a kind we had never seen. Lieutenant Sohee Chang stood up from her seat. What does that mean for the rest of us? It means the universe has entered a new phase of development. The humans have demonstrated that intelligence can transcend basic survival instincts. That consciousness can choose empathy over self-interest. The Watcher continued. We have decided to establish permanent presence in this galaxy, not to rule or control, but to guide and protect species that show similar potential for moral growth. Communications Officer Unjinam asked the question many were thinking. How do we know if we're worthy of such guidance? You prove it through actions like those at Kepler Station, by choosing to do right even when no one is watching, by showing mercy to enemies and dignity to the defeated. In the months following the peace treaty, the galaxy had seen remarkable changes. Former battlefields became memorial sites tended by veterans from both sides. Military academies throughout coalition space now taught courses on the Kepler example. Young officers studied how small acts of decency could reshape entire civilizations. Private Jin Woo Han, now serving as an instructor at the Coalition Military Academy, often told his students about the night they stayed behind to bury enemy dead. We didn't think we were changing history, he would say. We just thought it was the right thing to do. The personal transformations were equally profound. Commander Thekvar had recovered from his injuries and now served as a cultural liaison between humans and Vorthak. He often spoke about how human compassion had saved not just his life, but his understanding of what honor truly meant. Medic Taehyun Choi had established the Kepler Memorial Foundation, which worked to return personal effects of war dead to their families, regardless of species or allegiance. His careful cataloging system was now used throughout the galaxy. Engineer Min Jae-yu designed the monument that was built at the original Kepler station. It showed humans and Vorthak working together, with an inscription in every known language. Here lie warriors all, no longer enemies but honored dead. As the council session concluded, Captain Min-soo Park walked outside to the memorial garden that surrounded the assembly building. Admiral Korthan joined him, and together they stood before a simple stone marker. Do you ever regret staying behind that day? Korthan asked. Min-soo thought about the question. The decision had changed his life completely. He had become a symbol of something larger than himself. The weight of that responsibility was sometimes difficult to bear. No, he said finally. I regret that it took a war for us to learn how to see each other as people instead of enemies. Perhaps that is the human gift, Korthan suggested. You see people where others see only obstacles or threats. Above them, the stars shone with new meaning. Somewhere among those distant lights, the watchers maintained their eternal vigil. But now they watched, not just to observe, but to guide and protect species that chose compassion over conquest. The universe had changed because 200 humans decided to do the right thing when no one was looking. And that change would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. In military academies, diplomatic schools, and around family tables throughout coalition space, people told the story of Kepler Station, the story of how honor proved stronger than hatred, how mercy became the foundation of a new galactic civilization, and how humanity had shown the universe that the greatest victory was not in defeating enemies, but in transforming them into friends. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be.